Hi friends, this channel is Brilliant Blue Reviews. My name is Heather, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you my review of the newly released movie directed by Steven Soderbergh, Black Bag. I've really been looking forward to seeing this movie. The previews looked really cool, and I very much enjoyed Steven Soderbergh's last movie, which was Presence, which I've already done a review of on this channel. You can check that out at this link up here. Presence was a little bit of a different movie for Steven Soderbergh, but he said in interviews when that came out that he had always wanted to do something of a ghost story. I do also have another video coming that I have filmed but have not edited yet, and it's when I went to see Presence for a second time. The first time I saw it by myself, I went to it a second time with my daughter Megan, and I filmed a video getting her reaction and her opinions on the film, and also pointing out a number of very important things about Presence that we missed. So make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you don't miss that video and all of my other movie reviews that will be coming in the future. Black Bag was absolutely wonderful. I really enjoyed it. I had a great time seeing this film. I was in a really good mood afterwards. It's a very sleek, stylish, smart, sophisticated thriller, I guess. A tight 90 minutes long, 95 minutes. It's very quick. There's a lot of dialogue and it does go pretty fast. And you've got to be pretty savvy about certain things to be able to follow. I mean, first of all, you've got to be able to follow pretty quick dialogue. You have to have some decent knowledge of, I would say, how the intelligence community works, international intelligence agencies, geopolitics, things like that. Knowledge about those things will definitely help you with this film. The other thing that I want to give you a warning about right away is it's very British. It is set in London, which is my favorite city in the world. I actually did 2 studies abroad. I did 1 study abroad in Ireland, and I did another study abroad in London, and I've been back to London a number of times since then. For example, these are just 2 times that I've been there. Here's me and my oldest son when he was 10 back in 2000 something. 2007, I think. Here we are at the Tower of London with a view of Tower Bridge. More recently, here's me just a couple years ago with my younger 2 kids, also at Tower Bridge and in front of Parliament and the Elizabeth Tower. I absolutely love London. I feel very at home there. I love any movie that is set in London. I'm going to like it a lot more just because of the setting. But the other thing that I want to warn you about, I mean, I was fine, because I'm very used to being around British people, speaking with various British accents from different regions and classes and things like that. The accents in this are pretty thick. In addition to the fact that they've got pretty significant British accents, they're also speaking quite quietly a lot of the time, and they're speaking quite rapidly a lot of the time. And the conversation and dialogue in the movie is quite intelligent and smart and clever. And so if you're a little bit more of an average American, you might have some trouble following along. About 10 minutes into the film, I thought to myself, boy, this is really British. And I said, I'm wondering if people in this theater with me are going to have trouble following this. And I actually thought that to myself. And sure enough, I was the youngest person in the theater. I went to it yesterday on a Sunday afternoon by myself. There were a number of other couples in the theater with me, all of whom were older than me, maybe late 50s, 60s. I think there was one couple that was like in their 70s or maybe even 80s. And then there were 2 individual gentlemen separate from each other that had gone to the movie by themselves. And one of those was the president of my bank. He's a very frequent moviegoer like I am and goes to probably just as many movies as I do. I see him at the movie theater all the time. And he came down and was chatting with the couple that was sitting next to me after the movie. And they asked what he thought of it. And he said, oh, it was okay. He said, I really had a difficult time following it. And he specifically mentioned that he had a difficult time understanding them because of their accents. I just want to warn you about that right away, that you've got to be able to understand relatively quiet, rapid speech in pretty heavy British accents. The one person, interestingly, who I felt was the easiest for people to understand, like just general public, was probably the character of Catherine, who is played by Cate Blanchett. And I think the reason for that is because Cate Blanchett is actually Australian, not British. And so she very likely worked with a voice coach or a dialect coach of some kind before this film to get just the precise type of British accent that she needed to play this role. She's very good with her accents, just like Meryl Streep. I think because of that precision in learning it and making sure she was completely disguising her Australian accent, that's probably why she was the easiest to understand. Going back to it being directed by Steven Soderbergh, one of the things I really liked about this movie, and I'm just going to tell you right now, I absolutely love it and I give it 5 stars. And one of the things I liked is it had more of the feel of some of Steven Soderbergh's other movies that I've really enjoyed, specifically the Ocean's trilogy. So Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13, starring George Clooney, Brad Pitt, all of them. If you've seen those movies. There were 2 specific things that I noticed that kind of gave it the same feel as the Ocean's trilogy. One was the very judicious, brief use of music. There's not a lot of music in this movie, but the music that is there really had the same vibe. It almost sounded like the same music, but not quite, as Ocean's 11. The other thing was the transitions. Not necessarily between individual scenes, but between like sections of the movie, chapters, if you will. The movie's actually divided up into days of the week, and there were some transitions between the days of the week that he uses that reminded me of the Ocean's trilogy. So that was kind of cool because it had a very cool vibe, like some of Steven Soderbergh's movies do. That this was also reflected in just the way it was written. The writer, David Koepp, did a really good job with the writing of this film. The lighting and the costumes, everything about it was just so cool. Now, it takes place in 2 main locations. There's more besides this, but the 2 main locations were the 2 main character, George and Catherine's home and their office, okay? Now, this movie centers around 7 main characters. They all work for the same British intelligence agency. It is not overtly stated what agency they work for. It's implied that it's MI6. MI6, if you're not aware, is the British counterpart to CIA in the United States, so they deal with international intelligence. The building that they show them working in was not what I believe is MI6 headquarters in London, but that's not to say, they don't have more than one location or whatever, or they just didn't want to use that actual building. I don't know. But the scenes that are shot in the office, if you will, or at their headquarters where they all work, is very bright and, modern office environment. So it was kind of an interesting contrast between the scenes that were shot there and the scenes that were shot in George and Catherine's home. So the 7 main characters are very interesting. The 2 main characters are George and Catherine, who are played respectively by Michael Fassbender and Cate Blanchett. And they are a married couple who both work in this intelligence organization. So they're spies. The basic premise of the movie, it starts out with a dinner party that George and Catherine are hosting at their home for 2 other couples that they work with. So these are work colleagues, but also 2 other couples like them that they apparently thought it would be fun to have over for dinner. So the first couple is played by Regé-Jean Page, or Page. You may recognize this actor from Bridgerton, if you're a fan of that show, or that series. His partner that he comes with is Dr. Zoe Vaughn, who is the psychologist that works with the agents in the office, and she is played by Naomi Harris, who you might recognize, I definitely did, as the new Miss Moneypenny to Daniel Craig's version of James Bond in the most recent James Bond movies. The other couple are played by two actors that I did not recognize. They were new to me. I did look through their filmographies, and I can't say that I saw them in anything. She's mentioned as having a part in Barbie, but I don't remember her from Barbie, so which isn't surprising. There's a lot of people in that. But him, I haven't seen in anything at all, but apparently he was in the most recent Dune movie. Or no, Mad Max Furiosa, that's what it was. But I didn't see that. So Tom Berg plays Freddie, and Marissa Abela plays Clarissa. And they're the other couple. There's 6 of the main characters. And then the 7th main character, not that they're the only characters, there's other characters in the film too, but the 7th main character is, I can't remember his character's name, but he's kind of like their boss or the head of their section or something. And he's played by Pierce Brosnan, who you probably remember as being the previous iteration of James Bond prior to Daniel Craig. And if you're as old as me, you probably also remember him even more fondly as Remington Steele. Okay, so my favorite part of this movie was the interactions between these 7 characters. They're done very well. They're acted phenomenally. It's really entertaining and interesting to see how these characters engage with each other throughout the movie. Now, I really can't tell you much of anything about the plot of the movie without giving major spoilers. It's good. It's quick. It's clever. It's smart. It's exciting. It's intense. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. It does center around it's kind of thinly veiled, but it's pretty obvious that what they're talking about is the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the ongoing conflict there, which I thought was very timely, and something related to that. So that's quite interesting. George and Catherine have obviously been married for a long time. They don't have any kids. They're quite well off. They're enjoying their life together. I mean, they still do like totally normal couple things like going to the movies and cooking dinner and all of that stuff. But they're also a very elegant and sophisticated couple who obviously still enjoys a very robust sex life with each other. Each of these characters, at least the 6 characters, not necessarily including Pierce Brosnan's character, but even a little bit him, something that was very interesting about the movie is that there are secrets that are very interesting and in many cases quite provocative revealed about each of the characters throughout the movie. And that was pretty cool. The one character that I noticed, I was thinking about it later, that didn't have any real secrets revealed about her was the character of Catherine, Cate Blanchett's character. Although you definitely do learn some things about her as a character through the course of the film. But there aren't necessarily any like secrets revealed about her like there are for the other 5. Tiny little spoilerish thing. One of the main things about this movie that's so interesting is that they're giving you the implication that George and Catherine have secrets from each other and that they're hiding things from each other. And in the end, what it turns out is they actually don't have any secrets from each other at all. And they actually know a lot more about what's going on than even the audience realizes. So that was really cool. A couple of little clever things that were in there with the plot or the action of the movie that I'll tell you about to kind of give you an example of what I mean by this was really smart and clever, and that you have to be, somewhat savvy and definitely paying close attention. One thing was Catherine is going out of town, out of the country, for an overnight black bag operation, which means she can't tell George where she's going, what she's doing, who she's meeting, or what, anything like that. But George, by basically breaking into her office and looking at her calendar at work, he figures out where she's going, which is Zurich in Switzerland, okay? Now, if you're not aware, Switzerland actually has 4 official languages: English, French, Italian, and German. Zurich is in the German-speaking area of Switzerland, okay? I've been to Switzerland. I've been to the German-speaking area of Switzerland. I was able on my trip between Switzerland and France to quickly switch back and forth between speaking German and speaking French. My language abilities, which are pretty strong for the average person, I can actually speak and understand about 7 languages, some stronger than others. My French is very good. My Spanish is quite decent. My German's pretty good. the others less so. My Italian's actually pretty good too. I recognize something that I don't think anybody else in the theater caught. Okay, so he knows she's going to Zurich. I know that Zurich is in the German-speaking area of Switzerland. As she's leaving to get in her car, the car service is picking her up to take her to the airport to fly for this black bag operation. George isn't supposed to know where she's going. He says, okay, bon voyage. And then she takes another couple steps because she's hurrying to get in the car. And he says, gute Reise. Okay, and she stops and she pauses and turns around and looks at him kind of like confused for a second. And then she just smiles and says, love you, and then goes and gets in the car. And I thought that was so cool. Okay, because gute Reise means have a good trip in German. All right, so he was basically letting her know, I know where you're going. And the fact that she was like, taken aback for a second, but not really surprised and not really bothered by it was also very telling. So it was that kind of little subtle exchange that I definitely caught. But I don't think anybody else around me in the theater understood the significance of that at all. First of all, they probably didn't understand what he was saying. Another part that I thought was really cool was it's kind of a little bit of a twist, or it's definitely a significant change of circumstances for George. He gets Clarissa's help commandeering, I guess, some satellite coverage of Zurich so he can see what exactly Catherine is doing and who she's meeting and what they're talking about. And they do this in the 3 minutes and 20 seconds they have as one satellite is handing over to another satellite. Something later is revealed, something very important happened in that 3 minutes and 20 seconds somewhere else that is like an oh shoot moment for George. And I realized it really quick, and I actually audibly gasped when I realized how bad this was. And again, nobody else in the audience reacted because I don't think they got it. They might have figured it out a little later, but right away initially when I realized it, I was like, nobody else, nothing. Okay, so lots of smart, quick stuff like this. You had to be paying attention. You've got to be pretty savvy about, again, like the intelligence community, geopolitics, stuff like that, to realize some of these things that were very subtle, but really well done. Very much enjoyed the movie. I mean, I just was entertained beyond belief. I loved it. Why is the movie rated R? Okay, the movie is rated R. I would say the main reason is because of the subject matter that the characters discuss. So it's the things that they say. It's the things that they say to each other and talk about is very adult. Not all of it, but a good majority of it. Not only in their work, but the things that they talk about that are personal things. They talk a lot about sex. They talk about drugs. They talk about some pretty heavy adult topics. There is a good amount of profanity. It's more like the British way of saying things, but I think there is quite a few uses of the F word, things like that. So there's some profanity in there. And then also there are 2 very quick instances of violence. Something violent happens to a couple of other lesser characters, but it's not anything that would really be upsetting. Something happens pretty close to the beginning, and then later there's like an action-y kind of explosion thing. But those aren't anything that wouldn't be like in a PG-13 movie. There are 2 instances of violence that are pretty intense and severe. They're very, very quick. And you do have a decent amount of warning, like that you have time to look away if you need to. So for example, the first one that happened is pretty early in the film, and I saw it coming. And so when it actually happened, I was actually able to go like this really quick. And I noticed that the lady next to me, sitting next to me, she did it too. So you did have enough warning that you could quick avert your eyes if you didn't want to see this specific thing. And then I turned back to the screen and it was over. It was gone. And you didn't see anything. So it was fine. And then very late in the movie, almost the very end, something very quick and violent happens. But again, it's very quick. you could, if you're paying attention, anticipate it a little bit. But it's still quite shocking. It still kind of like freaks you out, but it was very quick. So those are the only incidents of violence in the movie. So you don't have to worry about any like big, long, prolonged violence, or there's no torture, there's no long, brutal scenes or anything like that. There's just these two quick things that happen in the movie, and that's all there is for violence. So I would definitely say that the movie is R because of the subject matter and what they actually discuss and talk about, and probably the profanity. There is no nudity and there is no sexual content. There is implied sexual content between the couples, like they're touching and kissing and stuff like that, but there's nothing graphic shown or anything like that. Overall, I thought this was a really well done movie. I'm very pleased with it. I think this was a triumph by Steven Soderbergh. I liked it very much. I give it 5 stars. And I definitely would like to see it again. My daughter wants to see it, and so we'll probably go see it again, hopefully. Again, though, I've got to warn you, you've got to be paying attention, you've got to be following along, and you've got to be able to understand them through their pretty heavy British accents, which was definitely and obviously much easier for me than it would be for the average American. If that intimidates you or you're worried about it, this might be something that you might want to stream once it goes to streaming and use the closed captioning, because you might not be able to catch everything that they're saying, which definitely is very important to be able to do. But overall, I give Black Bag, directed by Steven Soderbergh, starring Michael Fassbender and Cate Blanchett, 5 stars. Really good movie. I came home, and when I went to write it down and add it to my list, I was actually thinking, I think this is the best movie I've seen so far this year. But then I was looking at my list and I went, oh, almost everything I've seen so far in 2025 has been 4 or 5 stars. And in fact, I only had 1 4-star. Kind of. I gave Presence a solid 4 stars. My lowest rated movie so far of 2025 was actually Captain America: Brave New World, which I gave 3.75. Okay. So that was actually my lowest movie, and it was still pretty good. But the other movies I've seen so far in 2025, including Black Bag, I gave 5 stars to. So I've really enjoyed what I've been seeing so far in 2025. I am pretty selective about what I choose to see because I want to make sure I see things that I like, but I really like this, and I am going to say that so far in 2025, this one was my favorite. If you want to see the reviews of all the movies I've seen and posted reviews of on my channel so far, this is still a relatively very new channel. I really appreciate your support, your views, your likes, your comments. Please subscribe if you haven't yet subscribed. I do have a playlist on the homepage of my YouTube channel, one for book reviews if you're especially interested in books, and I have a separate one for movie reviews, which shows all the movie reviews I've done in one place. I do have lots of other playlists on my channel too, but those two specifically, in case you want to see like all the book reviews or all the movie reviews, are right on the main page on my YouTube channel. So I hope that's helpful to you. Thanks again for taking the time to watch this movie review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed while you're down there. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you next time.